What is emancipation? And what does Hinduism has to say about it? Emancipation means upliftment in a social context. In a spiritual context, it means rising, which can have various connotations. Emancipation may be rising above oneself, rising above the society, rising above normalcy, or even rising above this earth. And that is how emancipation is linked to salvation. But though equivalent to salvation, but emancipation is not equal to what liberation or moksha is suggested in various religious texts which talks about attaining salvation. Hello and welcome to Indian Mythology in Modernity, and today we will speak about Sulabha. Now, if I have to explain emancipation in simple words, I may quote that it is to free oneself from 9 verbal faults and 9 faults of judgment, to acknowledge the ambiguity and uncertainty of merits and conclusions. Now, these are not my words. They have been spoken by an enlightened lady who won a very prominent debate against the learned King Janak. Yes, I'm talking about Sulabha, who was an ancient yogini in India. Now, even though we have spoken about Gargi in our previous episode, who was also a woman philosopher of the ancient Vedic era, but it goes undeniably that neither popular nor scholarly debates have paid enough attention to the unmarried, learned women of Hindu texts. Who is Sulabha? Yes, as I said earlier, that not many of us will recognize her name at once. She is an ancient sannyasini, a single woman who appeared in the ancient epic Mahabharata, where she won a very popular debate against the philosophical King Janak in presence of Brahmins and scholars with her calm, logic, and philosophic wisdom. Bhishma refers to this particular debate between Sulabha and Janak when Yudhishthira questions him about emancipation and renunciation of domestic life. So the story goes like this. Once, many philosophers and scholars from all across India arrived at the court of King Janak, who was the ruler of Videha, as you know, because the king himself was also learned in the Vedas. Now, Sulabha, who was a single yogini, used to travel all across the earth, all by herself. She transformed herself with her yogic powers into a beautiful woman and entered the court of Janak to test the king and to understand whether the king was truly enlightened. Just before the conversation began, she used her mystic powers to enter the mind of the king, the consciousness of the king, to telepathize what his true understanding was. Now the king began questioning Sulabha's identity, like who she was, where had she come from, what was she doing there, and the like. The king self-proclaimed himself as truly enlightened and liberated from all kinds of bonds. He proclaimed himself to be all-knowing and all-powerful and the greatest of all kings. In his arrogance, he also degraded the humble woman in front of him, the austere and bright lady who was perhaps more enlightened and spirited than himself. Now, Sulabha, with her power of wisdom and understanding, remained calm throughout the process when she was being humiliated, when she was being abused indirectly. She stayed calm and tried to explain herself to the king. She tried to explain that choosing the self, that keeping me and myself above others is not true emancipation. She not only defended emancipation, but she also defended her own honor by explaining that as grains of dust and drops of water exist commingled when brought together, even so are the existences of all creatures, sound, touch, taste, form, and scent. These and the senses, though diverse in respect of their essences, exist yet in a state of commingling, like lac and wood. It is again well known that nobody asks any of these, saying, "Who art thou?" She also talks about the 14th principle of consciousness, which is helps one to an apprehension of self as distinguished from what is not self, urging the king to look beyond his self-obsession. Now, Sulabha, with her merit, with her knowledge, proved that men and women were equal, that one self and the other are essentially the same. So, the ways in which a man can attain salvation, in similar ways, a woman can also attain salvation. She also proved herself enlightened and emancipated in the true form because she had mastered the essentials of yoga. She had mastered all the formulas of yogic powers. And also because she had given up domestic living to travel. And because she believed in equality. And that's the reason she was emancipated. Now, Sulabha's figure as a single intellectual woman has been harped upon in the essay "The Self is Not Gendered" by Ruth Vanita. In this context, we can actually find a similarity, or we can identify Sulabha with Vagdevi Saraswati, who is the goddess of wisdom and knowledge. She has been represented in Hinduism as one goddess without a consort. That is, she is also a single intellectual woman, though some mythological texts call her the wife of Brahma. But in most cases, or in most stories that we have grown up hearing, this particular information is a little dubious, whether Saraswati was married or not. We do identify her as a single woman who is also intellectual. What I mean here is that Hinduism has always developed women with intellectual power as self-empowered. That is, intellectual women in our religious texts have been developed as self-resilient and strong on their own. They never required a consort or somebody to support them. A fact which modernity has not been able to accept even today. So Sulabha is one particular character in ancient India whom we should look upon for inspiration as a guiding light. Okay, now who is this Janak? Is he the same person who is known as the father of Sita in Ramayana? Well, Janak is referred to a clan of kings who ruled Mithila or Videha from their city Janakpur. Now, Sita's father was called Siradhwaja. Some of the translations of Mahabharata say that the person with whom Sulabha had the debate was called Dharmadhyaja. If that is true, then this person, this particular king, Janak, could be a different person. But still, the reference to Janak and Mithila draws a connection between Sulabha and Ramayana, though she is not directly a part of the epic. And that is how our mythological texts connects characters and timelines into one woven string, a single woven string. And that is very interesting about Indian mythology or Hinduism. So today's readings have been taken from the Ramayana, the English translations of Mahabharata, and the essay, "The Self is Not Gendered" by Ruth Vanita. If you have enjoyed the content, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. The references to today's episode have been given in the description box below. And if you would like to know more about other women characters from Ramayana, You can also look up my book, Kanya Yug. So, till next time, stay safe, stay happy, and keep reading. Thank you.